Hi, Sean Stodola, Warranty Manager here at Charleston Homes, and today I want to talk to you guys about the importance of caulking and sealing your driveway going into winter. So every year we get the cold winter rash, whether it be the ice storms, the snow, the rain, and all that tends to freeze and wreak havoc on the concrete itself. And so the object is to caulk and seal your driveway to minimize damage that's going to occur to your driveway. So I've got some tools here. We'll kind of go over what you might need for that. One of which is a reciprocating saw, and this is more so to remove the expansion materials, which we'll go over in a later part. A caulking gun, I prefer the smaller one as opposed to the larger ones. It's a little easier to handle, as well as you get a little more control as far as the amount of materials coming out of it. You have your material, of course. We recommend like a Volcom or an MP1 caulking material. Need some rags for cleanup. Just keep your hands clean, and also any excess that gets on the concrete to be able to wipe it. A utility knife with a new razor blade, just in case there's any cutting that you need to do. It's also handy to open up your caulking tubes. Some rubber gloves are beneficial to kind of keep all that material off of your fingers. You can certainly use no gloves, but you just remember to use the rag to keep them clean. You're going to use a pump sprayer to apply your sealer, and this is just a single gallon picked up at a hardware store, $10 to $15. They do have larger ones, so you don't have to continue to fill it as often. But basically, you want to have some type of a pump sprayer. And then I like to top everything off with just a real fine play sand. And then basically what that does is kind of give you a texture over your material. So let's get started here. Basically, this driveway has already been caulked and sealed, but we're going to look at the joints themselves, how they basically, first they power washed everything to get all the debris out of the control joints, which these are your control joints here. So you're going to remove any excess dirt, any grass clippings, anything like that. So you want to power wash it first. And then give it a 24 to 48 hour period to dry off. You want to make sure your sprinklers are off the day before you get ready to caulk it, because if there's any excess moisture underneath that concrete, it will tend to rise to the surface and it'll actually bubble or blister up your caulking once it's applied. So the key is to do it on a dry day where there's no moisture underneath the slab as well. So here we are up at the transition between the garage floor and the driveway. And this is where the reciprocating saw comes into play. This, of course, has already been caulked and sealed, but in the event that this material hadn't been taken out and already caulked, you could simply use this type of saw and just go at an angle, and you're simply cutting out that material. You remove the excess. You want to cut it down about 1 to 2 inches below the top of your driveway, and then fill that void with caulking. You don't want to completely remove it, because the fact that you're going to use a lot more material for the caulking to get in there. If you do happen to have it to where it comes out, a lot of it comes out, then you can buy a backer rod and just stuff it in there and then caulk over the top of that. But a saw like this is going to come in handy, again, to cut the excess materials out. So then you use your caulking gun, and then basically I'm going to cut the tip off and then use like a long nail, or most of the caulking guns come with like a little metal spike piece on the bottom that you can poke it through, and then you're just going to simply apply that caulking into the joint, and then you'll have your rubber gloves, and then you can simply kind of tool that material out to where it's smooth. And if you get a little excess on the concrete itself, using the terry cloth I like to use, and you're just simply going to put it around your thumb like that and just simply wipe the excess off, and then rotate your rag as you're wiping it to kind of clean off that excess material. So you want to have a lot of these handy, as well as a trash bag to throw all your extra material away as you go. Another alternative to using the reciprocating saw is a utility knife, and you can simply use that to cut out that material. It's a little more challenging because it's going to take a lot more time to use the regular utility knife, but if you don't have the reciprocating saw, this is an alternative for that. So let's say I just got done caulking this bead of driveway. Then this is where my dry play sand would come into play. You want the really fine sand, and you're simply going to sprinkle over the top of that joint that you just got done caulking, and then just kind of lightly rub it in, and then you just let it sit for about 5-10 minutes, and then come back over it with a leaf blower and essentially you're going to blow all that off, or a push broom. But the problem with the push broom is going to be the fact that you're going to mess up that tool joint, so a leaf blower is going to be the better way to go. And then we're going to talk about sealing next. So now we're going to talk about applying the sealer for the concrete. So we like to use products called Aquapel or Salt Guard, and you can buy those at a commercial grade concrete company. But typically your box stores will not carry that product, so you're going to have to kind of look for it at more of the commercial concrete distributors. But they do sell to the public, and typically a two-car garage, two-car driveway is going to take about 5 gallons. If you have a 3-car garage, 3-car driveway, you're going to be about 8 gallons. Typically they're sold in 5-gallon pails, so you can have some extra. But just save it, because it's a good idea to once a year do the approach going into winter, as well as if you have any vehicles that are parked outside for the duration of the winter. Typically you'll see where the tires are parked, you'll see etching or what we call spalling in those locations. So you could certainly hit those areas a secondary time once a year when you're getting ready to go into winter. But again, the pump sprayer, you can get a larger version of this, but this one's going to work fine for what we're using it for. And then you're just going to put your sealer in there whole, no diluting or anything like that. And so all we're going to do is just pump it up. And you want to just make sure that the tip is not a direct spray, but more of a mist. And we're just going to go panel by panel. So in this application, we're going to do this square that I'm standing in right now, and we're just simply going to apply it. And as I'm coating it, if I see some areas that dry quicker than others, I might just go back and hit those areas just one more time, because the concrete's porous and it's going to absorb the material at a different rate in different portions of the driveway. So that's why it's a good idea to kind of get a uniform pattern. But all I'm doing is just simply going back and forth, and then I'll skip and go to my next panel and do the same. And if I notice at the panel I just got done with some areas that are drying up, I'll just go reapply that. You don't want to apply too much of this material, because it will pond and puddle and it'll create a little hazy look to it. The product, depending on what you use, may be slippery for a week or two, but after that sheen portion wears off, it won't change the color of it, and you won't be able to notice it after 2 to 3 weeks. So again, you just want to give it all one good coat. Typically the products, the Salt Guard and the Aquapel, last between 2 and 3 years before they need to be reapplied. But again, if you have extra materials, anywhere you park outside, it's a good idea to do where those tires are, or just where the entire vehicle parks. And then your approach, meaning where your street and the first panel up, just because the city always pushes that snow back up there, there tends to be a lot of ice damming and stuff like that. So that area, if anything, is going to be more prone to the spalling, as we call it, down there. The garage is also another good spot, because you pull her in with all the ice and road salt on your vehicle. They pull in these heated garages, or garages that would allow the snow to melt, and then you get all that stuff just sitting on your garage floor all winter. It's also a good idea on the nicer days in the winter to broom sweep, or to leaf blow out all that excess moisture, or not the extra moisture, but the extra salts and salt that kind of accumulates over the winter as well. You don't really necessarily want to hose them out, because that could cause damage to the driveway when it's really cold and freezing temperatures. But if the weather allows, it's not a bad idea to power wash or rinse out the garage and driveway as well on the nicer days. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the blog today. Hopefully it's informative. And don't forget to check out our website, charlestonhomesomaha.com, and our model locations. Thank you.